Now, we talked about the quadratic equations, and we said that if you want to solve the quadratic equation, we have many ways. If there's A, B, and C, all of them are existed, like x squared plus 10x plus 16, I will use the factoring way. If it can be factored. If it cannot be factored, what will be the second way? By using what?
The square root, teacher.
Completing the
Completing the
square.
square roots. Thank you. By completing the square. So if I have an A and B and C, I have two ways. If it can be factored, I use factoring, and if it cannot, I am using completing the square. If I don't have B, if there's no B, if B is 0, like x squared minus 16, I'll use the square root, as we said before, like we said, and like x squared equals 16. So x, it could be positive, negative 4 by square root of 16, or by the factoring way that I told you about it yesterday, by factorizing them, it's into like x minus 4 and x plus 4. Then I will use the 0 property, and I will say it is an x4, and it could be a negative 4. These are now the, if I have a, B, C, if there's no B, what about if there's no C, like an x squared minus 4x equals 0? What I have to do here, for this one here, we have to use the GCF, or the greatest common factor. We look at it, let's take x as a common factor, so we have an x minus 4, so I can solve it by x0 and x4. Let's take another example, like if you have an 3x squared minus 6x, like this example here. What we have to do? Let's take the greatest common factor. Let's factorize them, write the factors of them. We have 3x and x, and 6x, we have 2, 3, and x. So I have 3 and I have x, so I have a 3x will be the greatest common factor. After I took 3x, I will look at here. What did we have? We have an x and we have minus 2. Then after that, now, since we have 3x and x minus 2, I will use the 0 product property. That's mean 3x, it could be 0, or x minus 2, it could be 0. If 3x is 0, that's mean x is 0, and if x minus 2, that's mean x equals 2. Did you remember that?
Yes,
Yes.
teacher.
Yes,
So
miss.
here, if quadratic equation, as we said, we can solve it by many ways. If there's B, if there is C, if there is A, how we have used factoring. If cannot be factored, we use the completing the square. For a B is existed like x is not existed like x squared minus 16, we can use the square root and we can use the factoring way. And if C is 0, we have to use the greatest common factor. Now, for all of them here, for if A and B and C are existed, or B is not existed and C is not existed, we have something we call it the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula, it can help me to solve any of them. It helped me to solve an x squared minus 16, it helped me to solve x squared minus 4x, and it helped me to solve x squared plus 10x plus 16. So all of them here can be solved by the quadratic formula. Is it clear?
Yes, teacher.
Yes, teacher. Yes, miss.
Now let's talk about the number of solutions. For the number of solutions, you have to know that if x squared equals 0, in this case here, okay, in this case here, if we have an x squared equals 0, in this case, we have only one solution, which is 0. Another case, if you have a perfect square trinomial, like this example here, x squared plus 10x plus 25. When you factorize them, you have x plus 5 and x plus 5. So if you choose one of them, you will have x equal negative 5. So in these two cases here, we have only one solution. If x squared is 0 or if it is perfect square trinomial. Now, but will it have two solutions? It have two solutions in two cases. If it can be factored with a form of standard form, which is ax plus b plus c. And if we have an quadratic square here, we have to our difference between squares, which is x squared minus 81. If you factorize them, you have an x minus 9 times x plus 9. You will have two solutions. And sometimes there's no solution. When did we have no solution? No solution if the x squared like this plus 81. Why? Because if you move it to the second side like this, it will be negative 81. And there's, as we said yesterday, there's no square root for negative number. So that's why we will say there's no solution. Is it clear?
Yes, teacher.
Yes.
Yes,
And
miss.
you think that x squared minus 82, if it is x squared plus 81 equals 0, this cannot be factorized.
Yes, exactly. But if we have x squared minus 81, it can be factorized.
Okay. And teacher, while we are making the zero product property, so we can find what is x, because maybe the last lesson I remember that we find x, then we must find the coordinates of y.
This is for graphing.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Okay, now let's continue here. Now, so after we revised how to solve the quadratic equation, let's now use the quadratic formula to solve the equations here. We have 3z squared plus z minus 4 equals 0. Before that, who can remind you what is the quadratic formula?
And quadratic formula will be negative b minus plus
Minus
b squared
square root b, yes, minus 4ac over 2a.
Exactly. This is how to solve the solutions of x. So here we have this is a and this is b, this is 1, and this is c, which is negative 4. Let's now replacing it here. So we have an x equals negative b, which is negative times b, which is 1, plus or minus square root of b squared, which is 1, minus 4 times c, which is negative 4, times a, which is negative 3, over 2 times 3. Then Negative 1 plus or
Then
minus.
I will solve.
Negative 4 times negative 4, 16. 16 times 3.
16 times by 3 equals 40.
18, 48, yeah. 48. Now
48.
1 minus 1 plus 48, which is 49.
49.
Over 6. So I have a negative 1 plus or minus 7 over 6, because the square root of 49 is 7. So after that now, as you see, how many solutions we have?
2. So we'll make, yes, set of
We make
negative
2
7 over 6.
solutions. One of them with the plus and one of them with minus sign. So I have 2 solutions, as you said. We have a negative 1 minus 7 over 6. And we have a negative 1 plus 7 over 6. Negative 1 minus 7 is negative 8 over 6. It's negative 8 over 6. Or if you factor,
Yes.
if you simplify them, you get
3
it
over,
as
2 over 3.
4 over 3. The second one here, negative 1 plus 7.
Negative 6 only.
Positive
So
6.
1.
Over 6, 1.
Positive.
I have 2 solutions here. Negative 4 over 3 and 1.
1.
Is it clear?
Yes. Teacher, so I can use the quadratic formula for all the equations
Yes.
other than the x squared plus 8.
Yeah. But some, as we said, but we have something we have to know also. And not all the equations can be solved. Why? Because sometimes, do you remember the discriminant of b squared minus 4ac? We said if it is greater than 0, we have 2 solutions. If it is equal to 0, we have only 1 solution. And if it is less than 0, there's no solution. So sometimes there's some quadratic equations cannot be solved, even though with the quadratic formula.
Okay, teacher.
Okay, so
okay,
we can edit the ones before the hierarchy that we talked about them before. We said that if we have an A, B, and C, if we have only A and C, and if you have only A and B. On the first case here, we can solve it by factoring. We said if it cannot be factored by factoring, we can solve it by completing the square.
Teacher, are you asking a question?
No, just I want to continue completing the square. And also we say that if we have an A and C, what we have to do? Solving by square root.
Yes.
And if there is AB, we say that we use GCF. Now all of them, it can be worked by the
quadratic equation
formula.
Yes.
But sometimes
it can be by grouping.
Now, so grouping here also, yeah. Now, the quadratic formula here, as we said, it solves all of them. If all the equations can be factored, quadratic formula help me. But some equations cannot be factored. It is a singular equation. There's no solution for it. So how can I know? I will use something we call it the discriminant. If the discriminant is greater than 0, we say that we have 2 solutions. If it is equal 0, we have only 1 solution. And if it is less than 0, there is no solution. Now, let's have this example here. If you have 2d squared plus 9d equals 5. I want to know if there's solution for it, if there's a solution, and how many solutions for this equation here. What we have to do? There's another simple way we have to use it, which we called it a discriminant. The discriminant help me to find how many solutions. The first step, we have to write it in a standard form, which is 2d squared plus 9d minus 5 equals 0. The second step, we said that the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. So what did we have to find? We have to find which is a, which is b, and which is c. What is a here?
2.
2. And what is b?
9.
9. And what is c?
5.
Negative 5.
So after that now, let's replacing here in the discriminant. B squared, which is 81, minus 4 times 2 times negative 5. 4 times 2 is 8 times negative 5, negative 40.
Times negative.
So 81 minus 4, negative, okay, minus negative 40. Is it greater than 0?
Yes.
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 So since it's greater than 0, we have two solutions. Is it clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, which method is the best method for solving the equation? If you have 8x squared minus 13x plus 3 equals 0. Which method is the best method to solve it? Should we use the square root? Or should we use the factoring way? Or graphing? Or quadratic formula? The best method for you. Now,
Quadratic formula.
let's see step now the square root. Can I solve it by the square root?
No.
No.
No, because b is existed. Can I solve it by factoring? Think about it. How can I know? Think about it. Look at
It
this.
won't be easy.
And this is 8. 3 and 8,
24.
24. Give me two numbers. If you multiply them, you get 13. I get 24, sorry. And if you add them, you get 13.
Nothing.
24, it's 6 and 4.
Nothing.
2 and 12. 8 and 3. There's nothing. So, and it cannot be solved by factoring. By graphing.
Yes, it can be, but
It
should be
can
not
be
the best.
difficult, but you have to use the calculator. What about the quadratic formula?
Yes, it's the best.
How can I know if I can use it? I will check if there's a solution often or no. So the quadratic formula, it can be solved by it. So here the best method is the quadratic formula.
So teacher, if you brought us in the quiz like something like this, we must make only quadratic formula without graphing.
Yes. The graphing, it's not simple. It's not the best method for you. I told you which is the best method.
Yes.
Okay. Now, which type of function best models the data in each table? I've given you now the data like this here. Here we have x and y. Here we have 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Here we have negative 12, negative 11, negative 8, negative 3, and 4. I want now to find which model can be described, which function can be described the best the middles of the data here. Now, as we said before, how many types of we have? We have a exponential. Sorry, not exponential. Yes, exponential. Oh, yeah, okay.
We have quadratic, exponential, and linear.
And quadratic.
And linear.
And linear. Now, we said that if we have a common difference, we're talking about linear. So, common difference, linear. Common ratio, exponential. And the second difference will be quadratic. What does it mean? If I am at the final and I want to choose which describe this numbers here, the first step, I will try the difference. If the first difference work, I will say this will be linear. Then I will try the second difference. If the second difference work, I will say it is quadratic. If not the first and not the second work, I will go to use the ratio. If we have a common ratio, we say that we have an exponential function. So let's see now these examples here. Let's start now with the first difference. Negative 11, negative 12 minus negative 11. Negative 11 minus negative 12. It is negative 1. Negative 8 minus negative 8 minus negative 11. It is a negative 8 plus 11. So it is 3.
3.
Now,
Stop.
negative
It's not
3 minus
Yes.
negative 8. It's negative 3 plus 8.
8.
I multiply negative with negative, it's positive. Since we have now two numbers with different sign, and I'll subtract them, and I will choose the greatest number, the sign of the greatest number, which is positive. Then 8 minus 3 is what? 5.
Negative 5.
Positive 5.
5.
And here we have 4 minus negative 3, which is 4 plus 3, which is what? Which is 7. So, is the first difference work?
No.
No.
No, it is not a common one. Let's now go to the second difference. Three minus negative 1.
4.
Negative
4.
2, 2.
Yes.
3 minus negative 4.
Oh, okay.
Negative 1, it is 4. And 5 minus 3.
2.
2.
2. Here it must be positive 1, sorry. Here it's negative 11 minus negative 12. It's a negative 11 plus 12, which is positive 1. So 3 minus 1 is 2. And 7 minus 5
2.
is also 2. Now look at the second difference. Are the second difference common?
Yes.
Yes. So we say that this will be an
Quadratic formula.
quadratic.
Quadratic formula.
2. It's quadratic.
Formula. Yeah. Now let's take another example here. We have x and y also. 0, 3, 1, negative 2, 2, negative 7, 3, negative 12, and 4, 17. Let's talk about the first difference here also. negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. The last minus the first. So negative 2 minus 3, which is negative 5. Now let's talk about now the second one minus the first one. I mean negative 7 minus negative 2, which is negative 7 plus 2, which is negative 5. So here we have a negative 5, and here we have also negative 5. Now 17 minus, this is 17, yeah? 3, negative 2, negative 7, negative 12, and negative 17. Negative 17 minus negative 12, which is negative 17, plus 12, which is negative 5. Now look at the first difference here. Are they common?
Yes. Yes.
Yes,
So
they
because
are
of
common
that, we will say this is a linear
Yes, it's a linear.
function.
Now, if we have now these numbers here, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 3, 12, 48, 192, and 768. Now let's try the first difference here. 12 minus 3, it is 9.
Nine.
And 48
9.
minus 12, it is 36. Let's go to the second
Yes.
difference. Here, 192 minus 48. If you subtract them,
We'll get
you will get 144. Now look at the second difference. 36 minus 9, it is 27. And 144 minus 36, it is 108. Is the second difference common?
no.
No, so it's not linear, it's not
No.
quadratic. Let's see now the ratios, if we have a common ratios or no.
12 divided by 3.
12 divided by 3,
4.
4. 48
4.
divided by 12, 4.
4.
192 divided by 48 will be 4. So we said it is an
Exponential function.
Exponential function.
Exponential function.
it will be an exponential function. Okay, now after 5 minutes, the period will finish. I want you, please,